Welcome to the Revenue Optimists, everyone, a space for revenue, sales, and marketing operations leaders to come together and share practical advice and strategies. And today I have with us Jon Westover from Optiqs. Jon, tell me a little bit more about yourself and what Optiqs does.
I'm the founder of Optiqs, and what we do at Optiqs is we find there's just pretty much every marketing leader we talk to, they don't have a lot of confidence or clarity in their tech stack. They feel like it's put together by duct tape and bubble gum. And so what we do is we help marketing leaders simplify their processes and their implementations within their tech stack so that they can have that clarity and confidence in their systems again.
I was curious, what types of projects are you seeing in marketing ops right now?
That's a good question. I've seen a lot of people working on bringing AI into their workflows. How can they do the things like data normalization with AI? I know that we've started doing that at Optiqs, is, the things where it's dealing with data and trying to make data clean. Like a great use case is if you're ever trying to map data values between a different, let's say you have one country set that is spelled out country set, and then you have another one that is three little letter digits. Just trying to normalize data, AI has been really helpful. So I've seen that.
Well, I love at Optiqs, obviously, one of the things that you're focusing on for a simplification is the foundation. So in your experience, when you're working with organizations, how prevalent is bad data in the marketing tech stack?
That is a trap question. It's very prevalent. Pretty much everybody has it to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
It's normalizing all of the data to the way that the data needs to be within your marketing automation system so that it's also prepped so that it can get to your CRM. You mapped out all of the key fields that you need. I talked about this earlier. Make sure all of those key fields are normalized in a timely manner. Make sure that that object, lead, contact is mapped to the account at the right time. You need to have a bulletproof lead management strategy that is centralized as much as possible. None of this,
Mm-hmm.
the more unique point solution operational pieces that you have, that's going to be a nightmare for you. But if you get this down well, then it's going to free up your time dramatically when you're trying to send emails, when you're trying to automate down the road, because your automation will work because you know the fields that you're working on, instead of like, is it this country field or is it that country field? Oh, I chose the wrong one. Now it's not working. That is the single most important thing that will save the most time across everything that you do, whether you're doing campaign execution or whether you're doing automation. What are the fields important to your business that you would segment by? Common ones are number of employees, country, because based off of region, state, if that becomes more prevalent. Typically I see with companies that are focusing on US, Canada. But like I said, maybe annual revenue size, like those key fields that you're going to be segmenting off of. Job title, another one. Like, you've got to get those ones down and make sure that you have a good data strategy that normalizes them across all of the objects that you're working with. And that will
Okay.
save you a ton of time to act on them, but also to report.
And do you set the normalization up within the system to do it? So if there's a value that's coming in, it changes it upon entry.
Like I said, again, I start with what the key fields are for the business. And then I will go and make sure that when a new contact comes in, that contact gets enriched with whatever enrichment platform we have. And,
Mm-hmm.
we make sure that the priorities of data rule sets are there. Like, there's a lot of setup there, but yeah, make sure that it's enriched, that I have the information that I can get from there. And then after I have all of that data, make sure that it's formatted and normalized in the right flow that is necessary for the way that database is set up, and not just the automation platform, but also the CRM. Because if you don't, you're going to have issues between the two of them. And so once it goes in and that data normalization happens, then I will let that process be scored because now I know the data is good, so we can get accurate scoring happening with it, and then routing happens. Well, if lead to account matching needs to happen, it usually will happen within there, and then making sure that that lead gets routed to where it needs to go, whether that needs to go to sales, whether that needs to go to nurture. But this is like a core flow that I make sure is set up everywhere I go, and that it's as sequential as possible.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Which I guess brings me to the question is, it's a bit of a heated conversation on LinkedIn right now, but are you for or against restricted pick lists?
Yeah, I feel like most ops people are against it because there's a lot of errors that can happen there. I'm actually for it, and I'm going to tell you why. The reason I feel like it is because I feel like you, as an marketing operations person, need to be in sync with sales ops, anyways. And so your data in those specific fields, they should map to each other. And so I would say that I'm for it.
Okay. All right.
I,
John
most
put
most
it.
most most marketing ops people will probably be like, "What the fuck are you talking about, dude? Like, how are you going to do all your data normalization and all that crap when it's not realistic, man." But no, I'm for it.
Yeah. No, I think like obviously if you're doing things like scoring based on ICP, you need to make sure that the values are consistent. But it obviously the path to that consistency can be different for, whether it's doing it through restricted pick lists or normalization at a different stage. I think it's like, again,
Yeah,
it's like the maturity of your business maybe is what works for you.
yeah. There's definitely a lot of caveats. I like to be in lockstep with whoever my sales ops counterparts are. Um, Sometimes I am that sales ops counterpart for my clients. Like our business
Mhm.
handles that. Sometimes we aren't, but I know that sales ops likes it a lot just because they like to make sure that their database is clean. And oftentimes I find the reason that they'll do restrictive things like that is to make sure the data stays clean. They don't want some marketing and ops people to go in there and screw it all up for them. So they put in processes like that that are restrictive, but then also that can lead to sync errors if stuff happens when you're not in lockstep and those values aren't the same values. And so I feel like a lot of it is solved. Again, going back to what I was talking about, if you set up your right data flows to make sure that the data is normalized prior to getting to the Salesforce sync, you're going to save yourself a lot of headaches.
So when it comes to syncing errors, what are any gotchas that you recommend people to look out for?
The data, you've got to make sure that you have the right data priority. So what field has precedence? Is Salesforce the source of truth? Like there's already values there. Like you have to make sure that that's there. Is the field type the same? So you got to make sure that the field types are the same. Are the available values the same that you have between there? Your your field strategy is where the errors come up most of the time when syncing with Salesforce or other platforms in general. Do you have the right priorities in place or do you not? Do you have the right field types or do you not? And do you have the right values or do you not? So that goes
Mhm.
back to where I was talking about earlier is like your data strategy for the fields that you are important to the business. You need to map that across the tech stack. And when I mean that is not just marketing automation, it's going into the CRM and then any of these other bolt-on softwares that you have.
Let's my marketing ops person will be like, Beck, why are you bringing this up? But I love, I'm a nerd when it comes to, we talked about normalization, but I also love standardization and
Yeah.
standardization and naming conventions. They're my
Oh
my
yeah.
jam. I love naming conventions.
Yeah.
I'm curious if there's anything in your experience that you have as a formula that you could share about, naming conventions or standardization that you kind of swear by.
Yes. Yeah. So uh, I'm with you actually on the standardization. It is so last year I was working with a client and I came in there and they were using Marketo and there was no standardization for their campaigns they were running. It was all over the place. And that led to just making it incredibly difficult to even know what the campaign was, find the campaigns for specific years. Um, it leads to so many process problems. So I am 100% with you. Standardization is vital in addition to normalization because it's part of that it's part of that whole piece that is key to marketing leaders having confidence in their data, and that is consistency. Does it happen the same way every time for everything that you're doing? So yeah, I'd say, I mean, depending on your platform, Marketo obviously has a way to do it. I actually try to stick to the way that Marketo recommended it, where you've got a channel level code at the beginning, and then you talk about the provider partner. Like let's just use live events, for example. The channel would be live event that you have there, and then the provider or partner would be the name of the event. So like Forrester is happening right now. So it'd be live event, Forrester, and then the description of the audience that you had there, if that's how you set up your campaign. So let's just say this is like, actually this one's more of like a HubSpot setup because campaigns work a little different in HubSpot, but you'd have a description of who that audience is, whether they were like a boost scan or something. And then you'd have the month and the year. I think what's key to it is that you have the type of campaign that's there, and you have dates that are associated with it, and then the description of what the campaign is. You need those three things in every campaign that you have. Other things like the audience and whatnot will depend on technology that you're using and how the company works. But the number one key is that you have a standardization and that you use it the same all across the board, and that you're accounting for all of the channels / campaign types that you're using.
Yeah, consistency is key, and then descriptions and information, because obviously, if you're inheriting a system, it's good to understand what the campaigns that worked and didn't work. Because otherwise, if it just has if you're not using anything consistent or you don't know what the labels mean, it's really hard to understand and kind of forecast what you should do.
All of this feeds into giving the marketing leader, giving you that visibility to be able to make those business decisions. I mean, a client I was working with that at the beginning, like she was in the situation that I talked about where she was doing marketing operations herself for a long period of time. It got the job done, but it wasn't the best. And so they got some new funding. The business was doing well. And so she's like, what I was doing in the past isn't going to cut it. I need to be able to forecast what's going to happen for the activities that I'm doing. And so everything that we did, is to simplify that foundation for her and give her those insights. And we did do that. This was last year. And she was actually able to get more marketing budget because of the visibility that she was able to show, the impact that she was able to show from the marketing campaigns that she was running. And this was in Q4 of last year, which is a time when everybody's marketing budgets were getting slashed. She was getting more because she had that visibility and was able to show how well marketing was doing.
Nice. So the secret to more money is process and consistency.
Process and consistency that will lead to confident reports that will be able to allow marketing to tell marketing story.